This recording will cover part 2 of chapter 10 in your textbook. And as I mentioned in part 1, a bunch of these slides that I'm going to show you right now are not from your textbook. So if you don't watch or listen to any of the other recordings for any of the other chapters, you might at least want to listen to chapter 10, just because I want to make sure to give you some of this information about teaching content area. So I'm going to start off talking about the Frayer model. I'm going to show you what it looks like first, actually. So this is what it looks like. Again, you may have seen this before and you just didn't know the name of it. Okay, so it looks like this. And what it is, it's a graphical organizer. It's another type of organizer. It helps students with word analysis, vocabulary building, visual reference, all sorts of benefits. All right, so what you're going to do, you would put the term right here or whatever you're talking about. You would put a definition in your own words right over here, or in their own words, facts and characteristics about the term, examples, and non-examples. You want to make sure you're including non-examples so a student, so your students know what this term is not. And I'm going to show you examples, don't worry. Okay, so again, defining the term, describing its essential characteristics, providing examples of the idea, and non-examples. And non-examples are really, really important so they don't just automatically assume, oh, everything that we talked about here is an example, right? And you'll see what I mean in just a second. So it stresses the understanding words by requiring students to analyze the items and then to synthesize and apply this information by thinking of examples and, again, non-examples. All right, so let me show you an example. There you go. So the term is quadrilateral. All right, so definition in your own words would go here. Facts, characteristics would go here. Examples, square, rectangle, trapezoid, rhombus would go here. And non-examples, right? Circle, triangle, pentagon, dodecahedron. And so you could explain to them why a circle is not considered a quadrilateral. Well, there's not 4 sides, right? Stuff like that. So triangle, how many sides does a triangle have, everybody? Oh, 3, you're right, great job. So that's why you want to include some non-examples. Okay, another example is parallel lines. So again, definition in your own words, facts, characteristics over here, examples and non-examples. And you can talk about, hey, maybe go out into the school and find an example, or excuse me, find an example of parallel lines and then find a non-example of parallel lines. So you can use any term here. The ones I showed you happen to be about math, obviously, but you can do any term, science, social studies, or any content area would work, right? As long as you can define it, facts, characteristics, examples, and non-examples. All right, so that was a Frayer model. Some other examples are some mnemonic strategies. So there's the keyword and peg word method, and then letter strategies. And we'll talk about those in just a second. But first, I have a little trivia for you. Okay, so I want you to think about this. Which one is Chip and which one is Dale? Just from looking at the picture. Which is Chip, which is Dale? Well, I'm going to tell you, Chip is the one with the nose that looks like a chocolate chip. So that's a little key word, right? Chip has a nose that looks like a chocolate chip. Now you will forever know which one is Chip and which one is Dale. It might come in useful one day. You don't know. So keywords are words that sound like the concept or idea being taught. Usually there's a visual, you would model the new concept, show the relationship between the concept, the word that sounds the same. So an example is perpendicular. Okay, so perpendicular sounds like purple dictionary. Hi kids, hello kids, my name is Purple Dictionary. I sit on the bookshelf at a 90-degree angle. The purple dictionary is perpendicular to the bookshelf. So some of your students, are they going to remember perpendicular? Not necessarily, right? Especially some of your students who might have some learning problems. But are they going to remember purple dictionary and the picture of purple dictionary? Yeah, probably, right? That is a great way. Using keywords is a great way to get them to remember some trickier concepts. Perpendicular, the purple dictionary is sitting on the shelf at a 90-degree angle. It is perpendicular to the bookshelf. So they're going to remember this visual, they're going to remember this visual, and then they're going to be able to think, oh, what was that word? Purple dictionary, purple, oh, perpendicular. And then they might be able to get the term, that they want. Parallel lines, and the key word here is pair of elves. So lines that are the same distance will never intersect. The pair of elves are the same distance apart and will never intersect. The pair of elves are on parallel lines. So of course, what you could do, you could start with the Frayer model first, right? Parallel lines, and then you could move into the keyword or something like that, parallel lines. Then you could do this next one, which is just called a basic vocabulary map. And you could recreate this however you wanted, of course. Vocabulary term, parallel lines. Definition, lines in a plane which do not meet or intersect. Railroad tracks are an example of parallel lines. So there's a sentence and then there's a visual. Okay, so if you were doing this in, with students, you could do this one as a model. They could come up with another term where you could do some guided practice where you're working with them. And then this last one on the page, they could do independently for independent practice, or they can work with maybe a partner, and then they can come up with those, the term, definition, sentence, visual as well. All right, so that if we were in class, you would choose either the Frayer or keyword, come up with one term, complete either one Frayer or the keyword, and then complete the concept map. So just think about maybe how you could use all of these when you're out in your students or with your students. Okay, so that's the only bit. Yes, everything else is from the now back to the textbook. So thinking about how you can adapt class assignments and homework. So again, thinking of content area vocabulary, how hard some of those words are for your students because they're so unfamiliar and you really don't use, content area terms every day, right? We talked about that in part one. You're not out on the playground saying, ooh, I'm a quadrilateral or whatever, I'm coming to get you, right? We don't usually say those words, even though we should. So you want to think about maybe having students develop a checklist to organize assignments. And this is just kind of generic, not specific to any one content area or anything. Teach students to keep a calendar with due dates. You all probably keep a calendar. I have a calendar. Thinking about developing a plan to complete assignments and homework on time, and then promote success without undue attention to their disability. So if, when they submit something, great job, instead of, oh, well, I know you have a learning disability and this is hard for you, but no, we're not going to do that, right? We're going to promote their success. You can also think about adapting homework if you need to. So this was kind of class assignments, homework assignments. And then for homework, thinking about brief tasks. Focus on reinforcing learning. Homework should not be new material, right? You're not going to send them with something that they haven't seen yet. It should be practice. It should be review of something you learned or you taught them that day or the day before or something like that. You want to make sure the parents are involved as much as possible, ensure the assignment information is complete, and then you can also follow the tips in 10-6, which I don't think I have pulled up. I had pulled up figure 10.10 just because I thought this was another great example of a concept map, just to kind of show you what it might look like. Let me see if I can find 10-6 really quickly. Let's see, hold on one second. So keep visiting. So that's 10.5. We talked about that, listening for important words and important phrases. And so there's 10.6, apply the concept. So again, explain the purpose, get students started by modeling one or two problems. You can provide them examples before they leave to complete it on their own. That way you would know if they're on the right track. Okay, we're going to do 2 problems today before you leave. I'm going to show you how to do one. We're going to do one together, and then you're going to do the rest when you get home. Something like that, right? So they know what to expect. Okay, some other things, constructing and adapting tests, student-friendly test construction. You want to have clear directions, attention, to formatting. Consider alternative ways to assess learning if you need to, demonstrations, acting something out, portfolio, work samples, something like that, instead of maybe just the old school paper and pencil test. And check out apply 10-8 and 10-7. So accommodations, your students might need the test to be read to them. You might need to teach them some test taking skills. You might want to give them open book tests or give tests in small group, right? Thinking about meeting them where they are and allowing them multiple ways to show you what they know. We will talk about universal design for learning kind of after the textbook. And so that really thinks about, how can we meet students where they are and how can we give them opportunities to access the content and also to show us what they know that might not be a traditional, paper and pencil test. All right, this one is from, oh, I just showed you this. And this is actually from the last edition of the textbook, but it's, ooh, exactly what I just showed you, those cues to listen and watch for in lectures. So you might want to be explicit with them and say something like, if I say the main point of this discussion is, you might want to take note of that point. You might want to write it down. You might want to ask questions. Get them to start listening and paying attention to these important cues. Anything you write on the board might be considered important. Information study guides, stuff like that. You might point to something and say, this is important. Write it down. Whatever works for you and your students. Also, we want to think about study skills and learning strategies. So, especially for our students with learning and behavior problems, they're going to struggle with things like this, right? They're going to struggle with study skills. They're going to struggle with learning strategies. So, again, that is where you can be explicit with them. You can teach them time management skills, estimate how to estimate time required for tasks, how to make to-do lists. If you make a to-do list, share that with them. Tell them that I make to-do lists, and they might be in your phone, but they might be on paper and pencil, whatever, but share that with your students. There's another strategy called Slant. This is in your textbook and it promotes active thinking and task completion. So you could teach them, today we're going to learn a new strategy. This is called the Slant Strategy. It stands for sit up, lean forward, activate thinking, name key information, and track the talker. And you could work through that with them, do some modeling, guided practice, independent practice, stuff like that to teach that new strategy. Some other process skills, some other strategies, note taking. Again, very difficult for students with learning problems, attention problems, behavior problems. So you might need to actually teach some note taking procedures. You might want to provide them maybe some guided notes, where they have kind of the outline is there and then they have some blank lines that they fill in instead of trying to write down everything that you're saying. Again, explicit directions, monitor their progress. We've talked about that so much this semester, right? Remember that there's this good old, I don't know if you all learned this when you were younger, but I remember this strategy, the SQ3R, survey, question, read, recite, review, and you can focus really on those 3 R's. And then there's also, multipass, going multiple times through the same text. There are some sub-strategies. You can help students determine main ideas, related details, help them answer study questions, stuff like that. Again, explicitly teach them some of those strategies. Some other expression skills are, mnemonics, like we just talked about, keyword associations, that exactly what we just talked about. Which one's Chip? Which one's Dale? Purple dictionary, right? We just talked about those. Visualization, creating a mental image. Again, thinking of a picture of a purple dictionary is going to help them remember or recall that word perpendicular. Okay, you can thinking about helping them create study aids, helping them to learn to predict some questions, stuff like that. There's also Apply 10-11. There are some specific strategies about tests. And then there's a strategy for if your students have to take an essay test. There's this answer strategy, which I've actually never used. Analyze the situation, notice requirements, set up main ideas, work in the details, engineer answer, and review answer. So that would be something that you would teach them, again, explicitly. There are some other, of course, evidence-based instructional activities in the textbook. Word association map, which I'm going to show you in just a second. Vocabulary, click and clunk, contextual searching, study groups, learn these words. All of those are some really great instructional activities that are in your textbook. And then this one is the word association map. This, again, is from the 9th edition, so I'm not exactly sure what page it's on in the 10th edition. But it is probably around page 355-ish. So this is a word association map worksheet, and also think about that vocabulary map that I showed you a few minutes ago. So you would put the definition, the word in the the word goes here, definition, synonyms or examples, antonyms or non-examples, right? Going back to the importance of non-examples, and then create your own personal sentences. And for your younger students, maybe have them draw out their personal sentences. They could draw, they could write, stuff like that. But this is just a simple word association map worksheet. And in the old textbook, it was 10-18. And again, not 100% certain as to what it is this time. And of course, I'm going to run out of time. So that is it for chapter 10.